welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast for the UK.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
I caught it and fixed it all between the opening credits. So
is it done? Because I can't.
Done.
Is anybody there?
Joining us in just a second, I have no doubt. Or someone will tell us otherwise if they can't see it in just a moment.
I don't think they can see it because one.
There we go.
There's one. Everybody there? Don't know why it did that again. Anybody there? Anybody there? Anybody there?
Yes, there we go.
Hey, yay. Well done, Alex.
How's your week been?
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, all ticking along. Weird old weather. Ugh.
Oh, how do you mean? What's it been?
Well, I had to put the central heating on today.
Oh, is that just because you're an old man, though?
I suppose could be. Yeah, feeling. It's that, all old men wear cardigans and quite fancy one of those smoking jackets, actually, like a purple one, with a high collar.
Yeah, but you'd have to speak with through your teeth, and
Yeah. Well, I do. Well, I do anyway. Yeah.
So it depends on what level of client you're talking to, isn't it? Just depends on how toothy you get with your talking.
Yes. Pronounced enunciation.
And yes, you're very affluent, not effluent. Must never get those two muddled up.
Good afternoon, Guardian Pest Control. How may we help you?
Well,
how's your
going with this?
No, I don't either. So, how's your week been?
It's been good. I've been getting together with the joys of Loop. I don't know if you've ever used Loop before. It's a Microsoft tool. It's fantastic. Loop. It's a productivity management tool. Like you can create sheets inside of it, and you can put your jobs in there, and you can invite other people in your organization to do it. And it's meant to be make you more productive. And it's great. You look at it.
We use Asana.
Okay. Is that your CRM?
Yeah, well, it's not quite a CRM. It's more of a project management tool.
Okay, yeah. But saying the irony is I spent the last 2 days populating and setting it up and actually not really doing any of my proper work. So I've been super productive at making myself prepare to be super productive. So we'll see how that goes later on, whether or not we actually get anything done by it. But other than that,
the other one, is it Monday? Asana. Monday's another one, I think.
Monday's a good one. Monday's nice and easy. It's got big cards, especially if you've got a team of 3 or 4 people and you want to sort of make sure. And there is a little bit of a CRM built into Monday if you pay the extra money as well.
That's how we manage our jobs, actually, with Asana.
Okay.
Instead of a job, it becomes a project.
Okay. How does that work for one-offs and stuff?
Really well.
Okay.
Excellent, because you've got all the notes there. The guys can put any notes on it. They can schedule the next visit. I can put it on and then assign it to a person. Hi, Jason. So yeah, no, we find that quite good actually, and it's free.
That's the big draw for you, isn't it? It doesn't cost me a penny. Right.
Doesn't cost us anything.
Right. I want to start again with another Would You Rather, just for everyone, while everyone gets involved with this. Okay, a bit different from this week. What, if you were to be bitten or stung by any pest that we deal with, what is the one that you would, most want to avoid? What is the worst bite or the worst sting of any pest?
After the last time I got stung and I got really rather dizzy and a little bit, I probably wouldn't want to get stung by a wasp again, to be honest. I think that was bordering like anaphylactic shock. So don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you been stung over your career for that to suddenly start happening?
25.
25 times. You've only been stung 25 times.
Yeah, Neil got stung in the nuts today.
Right. Okay. Before we come back to how you've only managed to get stung 25 times over like a 50 year career, can we please have an explanation as to how Neil got stung on the balls?
Apparently, the worst thing was that he was trying to counteract the sting with some hand sterilizing solution in the car park of a children's school.
No, like Neil.
Well, no, serves him right. He gets protective equipment, and if you choose not to put it on,
what do you supply special, cod pieces?
Yeah,
Wasps?
cod piece, ventilated cod piece.
All-in-one Blackadder style cod piece to scare the wasps away. It has taken a dark turn, hasn't it, Neil?
Well, apparently what happened is the kids that were at the school decided that they were going to stoke up the wasp nest before Neil got there by sticking various sticks and mud into the hole. So Neil had to go along and remove the sticks, but thought it was going to, I might be wrong, he might resign next week, and decided that he'd go and do it without a pair of protective trousers on and something. So he had to take all the sticks out and unblock it, and he was hanging around for a little bit too long.
Wow.
Is that right, Neil?
That is a bold and decisive action, or the other option, I think, is just plain stupid. I
think it was fantastic. Didn't have to go back for a call out. Another follow up. Awesome. Hero.
Yeah, so hero. So Ben, have you only got stung 20? Because I've been stung 25 times in one nest before. Like, how have you managed to? And
I don't actually think I've probably thinking about it. I probably haven't been stung that often. Actually, it's probably more like 15, 12, 15. Because I'm careful and I always wear my protective equipment. Always.
Okay, right. I'll tell you mine and how it went so horribly wrong, so horribly fast. So I was down on one of the sites, and it was a ground nest, and I had, when I was doing my consultancy, ground nest at a zoo, in one of the enclosures, and I had if anyone remembers Ellen, she was with me. She had a full suit, everything there, only she'd forgot her gauntlets. She'd only brought her nitriles with her. So I was like, okay, can't have you coming into here and, learning how to do this without all of your PPE. So wear my gauntlets, and I will just wear my nitriles. I'll double them up, and I'll just make sure that the sleeves of my suit are pulled right down. But of course, they managed to wiggle their way up, and it was a ground nest. And how I generally deal with ground nests is I have a mole dibber, and I'll start at the entrance, and I'll work my way back down the entrance, following the tunnel all the way down until you get to that chamber where the wasp nest is. And as you poke it in, you feel that it gives way, and you feel the paper underneath. And at that point, you take the dibber out and you stick your DR5 or your duster down the hole, and you actually put it straight in straight away. Usually very good. So I've got Ellen there, and I'm like, right, pumpity pump it up. You pump while we do this. And I managed on first dib as she's pumping to hit the nest straight away, like literally first go straight away, hit the lottery. 1,000, 2,000 angry wasps suddenly like up in the air like this, and she's still sort of like very. It's like, you're going to have to go a little bit faster. At this point, they are covering me, and I was like, going to have to go a little bit faster. All over, and at this point they've found that there is a line, a bead between glove and cuff, and they just land on it on both wrists. And I was like, Ellen, I'm going to have to take this off you now, because we need to move with a little bit of speed and alacrity here, and because this is a training moment and this is one of your first nests, I am absolutely in no way going to shout at you, but we are getting to the point where I'm going to have to ask you to speed up in a voice that may sound a little bit panicked. Anyway, I did it, treated it, and that was it. And it was possibly the best learning event that I have ever delivered, because we covered everything from how to treat the nest to then to deal in the situation. But yeah, I must have got a dozen or more stings on both wrists at that point. So one of those, if the spare that you've brought with you does not bring their gauntlets, get them to sit in the car. It was a teachable moment through and through, I have to say. So
in the comments, quickly mention how many times you've been stung and where the worst place is.
The worst place enough I've ever got done was on the ankle, because it my foot then swelled up in my boot, and it was just like the rest of the day I felt like I was creaking and trying to operate the clutch with a shoe that didn't sort of like it was like I was wearing an air cast. It was disgusting. Like, really hated that.
Just before the summer, that's enough about stinging.
Wasn't it Andy Beddoes, like last year, got stung or on the face, on the eye? Put some pictures up on one of the.
Oh no, it was Rod Smith. Yeah.
Rod Smith, yeah. That he looked like he had gone 3 rounds with a like professional heavyweight boxer like that day. Really, it's amazing how much your face swells up, isn't it? But there we go. Right. Shall we do what we had planned on doing?
Yeah.
Lovely stuff. Well, let's, in which case, invite to the stage Hannah, who we've had on before, but has some exciting updates on her latest bit of research into pest management, or the industry of pest management, should I say. So, Hannah, welcome to the stage.
Hi, everyone.
There as well. So good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah.
Oh, lovely, lovely stuff.
Since last time,
it's been a hot minute, as the kids might say. God, I feel like an old man saying that. So, Anna, last time you were on, give us a little bit of a recap, because I believe you've just published the research that you were like we were chatting about beforehand. So, give us a little bit of an update as to how that's.
So when I was on, it was last spring, wasn't it? I think it was last spring.
Yeah.
And then we talked about what we were talking about, because that bit of research, I'd interviewed around 21 people from across the pest control industry in the UK, and I'd gone out in the van with some people as well to see what their work looked like, and I was identifying like the things that people enjoyed about their work. And the things that came up were about like having freedom at work, like control over how you did your work, about like variety and problem solving, and also about like kind of connection to others in the industry, but also being able to do like socially meaningful work in terms of like resolving customers' issues. It wasn't to say that everyone loves their jobs all the time. We've heard lots about wasps in groins, etc. But like it was about like the good qualities of the work. And so that piece of research has now been published in an academic journal. It's open access, which means that anyone can read it for free, but it's written with an academic audience rather than like say a pest control industry audience in mind. But I'm also going to be writing a version of it for Professional Pest Controller magazine that will come out in the September edition, and I'm also writing a news article about it for this this online magazine called The Conversation. So I'm hoping that the ideas won't just be in an academic journal, but they'll hopefully like percolate out further as well. So that's been going on. And I referenced the podcast in it as well. I referenced that the ideas came back to the podcast. I talk about how it was a validating part of the research process, that having people from the industry hear my thoughts and see if they think it makes sense or not is like part of what shows the research like is rigorous, right? I'm not just making things up. So that's
your peer review.
I mean, essentially, yeah, it is a form of peer review, yeah. So that's happening, and I can share the links to the articles when they come out as well, in case
Awesome.
your audience want to read them. I can send those on. So that's been happening. The other thing that's been happening, the main thing to talk about today, is that
But before we get into the proper meeting, what we're going to be talking about today, absolutely. I asked you this briefly off air, and it'd be great to have like a little discussion about it now. How has the academic world taken your particular fascination with the pest management industry? Because as we said on the last podcast, there is such a dearth of academics interested in what it is that we do, and so we've been so sort of like pleased, and so it's been a wonderful thing to have you follow us around and get involved and get to know us all a little bit better. But how have the rest of the academic world responded to this?
Well, I think I've kind of become like the pest person, like that's kind of like that's I think how people know me by my work, and I think that generally people are interested in the work because it's like not much research has been done around it, so it's like a bit different to what you might expect. People generally tend to be interested. My colleagues generally start telling me their own pest stories when I mention what I do, so I hear a lot about things that have been found in their kitchens, etc. I would say that sometimes I have to do a bit more extra work for the research to be taken seriously. So I think I think quite carefully about how I describe my work to people, and so like, and I kind of judge my audience, and then so sometimes I don't actually lead with pests at all in terms of what I talk about. Sometimes I like talk about the wider ideas, and then I'll mention pests, and so I try and like hook people in that way.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean, Hugh, I'm going to ask you to validate this for me here, because I do this thing where I also will gauge when someone's like, what do you do for work? And depending on that person, whether or not, there are different sort of like levels at which I will describe what I do. One of them is very sort of like high level, work in public health, pest management and the rest of it. And others, if they want to know a bit more, and I think they can handle a bit more, I get a bit more sort of like in depth. But it also is a relatively good get out of jail free card. I don't want to talk to you and I want you to leave. What do you do for a job? I kill things. Oh, okay. Oh, fine. Okay. Well, I've got to disappear off.
I literally, people say to me, what do you do for a job? And I go, rat man. That's it.
That's
and
interesting.
Go,
you don't use the word
what?
Pest, or don't use the word control. You just say the rat man, the village rat
man.
man. Local
rat man. And they look at you as if to say, hey, what? Rat man? I'm like, yeah, rat man. Oh, it's a bit more than that, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, it is actually.
That's an amazing bit of like reverse psychology there. Like completely downplay your job. Like, no, come on, you do more than that. You also kill my wasps and fix my gutter.
Yeah.
That's
Clean the windows.
Clean your windows, please. No, that's really interesting. It's also it's not unexpected that you have that sort of reticence or misunderstanding, but it's nice to hear that it's not as intense maybe as we once feared it may be. So yeah, that's.
How do you find? I mean, obviously, it's a bit easier to find pest controllers because you just look down the list and give them a ring and say, "Oi, fancy doing a bit of research?" There you go. But how do you find somebody that's had a pest problem for the next project that you're going to talk about?
So it can be quite tricky, to be honest. So like on one level, people are kind of everywhere, right? Because I feel like almost everyone's had a pest problem. So in some senses, they're everywhere, but in other senses, people often don't want to talk. because they might be embarrassed or ashamed about having had pests, or there were some people who kind of got the advert for my research passed on to them, who'd had like a really significant recent or ongoing bedbug problems, and they didn't want to talk to me because it felt too recent, and they were still like too like distressed by the situation, so they wouldn't talk to me. Sometimes it's like a bit much and people don't want to talk for that reason, which obviously is, you know, the research, you have to make sure that people aren't distressed by doing your research, and they therefore aren't appropriate interviewees. I recruited through local like next door groups and Facebook groups, for sending out messages on WhatsApp. I put up posters. I kind of like the way I framed my materials was my ask was like, could you pass this on to someone who you think might want to do an interview? So I was always framing it in terms of, could you help me recruit a participant, rather than saying, you've had bed bugs, talk to me. But then people often were like, actually, I am that person, I'll talk to you. And then so like so a thing to say also is that this is qualitative research, right? So it's not quantitative, it's not about the numbers, it's not about having like a statistically significant sample. It's about getting like into like rich details about things to like understand like meanings and practices. So, you know, I don't need to have surveyed like 10% of the UK. Like that's sort of not the aim of this sort of research, if that makes sense. But I did want to make sure that I talked to people who covered a range of types of pests, a range of like housing tenures. So I wanted to talk to people who were private sector renters, who were social housing tenants, who were owner occupiers. And I also wanted to talk to people who had a range of experiences, because like, and I tried to be really neutral in like how I framed my interview materials, like my recruitment materials, because it didn't say like, were bed bugs the worst thing in your life ever? Talk to me now, because then I'd only get people who had a certain experience. I also wanted people who had some mice and they didn't really care. Like I also wanted like slightly like unremarkable experiences as well, because that range helps us show like a wider spectrum of how people are responding to different types of pests in different types of contexts.
That sounds like such a monumental task, to try and get that level of diversity without biasing your results at the same time. Did you find that there were some inevitable natural biases that crept into your research whilst you were, because you mentioned the different types of housing, for example?
Yeah.
You find that there were significantly more instances of pest issues with certain types of housing, or, you know, I haven't, of course, seen your research, but, you know, what were the big biases that caught you off guard, let's say, that you didn't expect to find?
What things that caught me off guard? I guess so I guess the things I hadn't thought about when I started the research was about how one interviewee might move between quite a few different categories over the course of their life. So like the interviewer I'm talking to now, they had a bed bug problem when they were a private sector renter, and as a child there were mice in their house, and now they own a property with their partner and they've got ants, and so like they end up being quite a few different, so that one person end up representing quite a few different experiences. And I hadn't really I guess I hadn't anticipated that, if that made sense. I think that there are some intentional biases in my research, and that's about purposeful sampling rather than like me trying to skew the data. So like people who live in private rental sector accommodation are overrepresented. And the reason I recruited more renters was that I was interested not in how often they have pests, but I was interested in the question of how they responded to pests because of changes that are happening in the law at the moment around landlords' responsibilities. So all my interviews were done before these changes in the law happened, but I was interested to think in seeing like what is the situation for private renters right now, and therefore what might these legal changes mean and how might they be implemented. So for that reason, my data skews a bit more towards renters, because also their situation in terms of managing pests is often more complicated than with homeowners, right? With homeowners, like they're often, you know, there can be financial burdens to, say, calling out a professional pest manager, but the decision of whether or not to get in a professional is generally in the homeowner's hands, right? Admittedly, sometimes they might need other professionals, maybe that, but like, you know, generally they kind of have control over that. Or if like if structural changes need to happen to the property, like forms of proofing to manage the problem, again, they have the power to be like, we need to do this. So like in some ways it can still be an enormous financial burden, but it can be a slightly more straightforward process to manage. Whereas with private sector renters, it's like sometimes there would be this question about firstly like about how like blame for pests is distributed, like who is responsible for there being pests there, and that would vary a lot by the species of pest, I'd find.
Okay. So let's drill into that one for a second, because that's quite interesting. Yeah. So I mean, there's two elements. So if we take the homeowners to begin with, generally speaking, because it is their home, are they more likely to take ownership of that particular pest or that problem? Or again, is it very, you know, because I imagine when you get to the renters as opposed to the owners, the renters might potentially, and I'm just guessing here, and you can tell me otherwise, shift a lot of the burden of responsibility and onus onto the landlord, the absentee landlord, for letting conditions get to where they are. And there we go. Or is that an assumption? Is that erroneous? Or what did you find? Who took responsibility?
So it very much depended on the. So I'm gonna respond in terms of like species, because I think that and how it varies by housing types. I think that helps clarify things. So across all my interviews, the most common species came up were mice. However, in terms of when people called out professional pest control, it was bed bugs that were the one that most people were like, I need to see a professional. And I found that in the context, because I also looked at when there were professional pest controllers, I looked at who paid for the services. And so in the scenarios in which there were private or social actually housing renters and they had bed bugs, they would often still be paying for bed bug treatments. So like it seemed that like it was that the sort of like necessity of action professionally for bed bugs was the strongest, and then they would end up paying. But often the reason that they were paying is because they have been in this sort of dispute with their landlords about who was responsible for paying for the bed bugs. And the landlord would say, sometimes the landlord would agree to pay, sometimes they wouldn't, but either way it would get paid for, and they would tend to go for professional treatment.
Did the renters feel that it was, or did you not ask them, that it was their fault that they got the bed bugs, or that it was the landlord's fault that they got the bed bugs?
Well, it really varied. So I didn't use the language of fault or blame. But I asked them like, where did the bed bug, why do you think you got bed bugs? like, where do you think they came from? Like, we'd like kind of talk through the whole story of like, when did you first see them? How did you know you had them? When did you realize they were definitely bed bugs? And so a big difference is about whether or not people had just arrived in properties, or if they were there for a while. So because of the tendency towards like short-term tenancies in private sector renting, people are often moving around quite a lot. Sometimes people would be like, I'd been in the flat for 6 months. Suddenly I noticed I had bites. I realized it must have been because I stayed in that hotel 2 weeks ago. I knew it was my responsibility. I had to get it sorted. I paid. So sometimes it would be like straightforward like that, and the tenant would pay. Or sometimes they would move into a place, or sometimes a lot of things came down to bed frames. Like there was a lot of, because some of the accommodation people were staying in, they were semi-furnished, so the beds were owned by the landlord, and so people are moving onto the mattresses. They're moving onto mattresses and beds that other people have slept on, and then people would say like, it was in the bed frame, therefore it was the landlord's responsibility. So it would sort of depend on how they understood the origin point. Or there was one case where like a bed broke and the landlord brought in a new bed and it was secondhand, and then there were bed bugs, and the landlord was like, oh dear, I've brought in secondhand bed frame with the bed bugs, and so the landlord paid. So it would sort of vary, but sometimes also people couldn't figure out where the bed bugs had come from, and it was like a mystery, and that uncertainty was also a thing that bothered people quite a lot, because it kind of created this fear that they could appear anywhere. But people sometimes also just paid for the pest control to like make things easier with their landlords, to like not have to get into a dispute, to not have to get into a fight about it, and they just like paid and got it sorted, because they didn't want to like, they were worried the pest could be a grounds for like not renewing the tenancy, so that for those reasons often they did just pay.
That's really interesting. And yeah, especially that last bit, which is people using pest controllers as almost a due diligence shield, that I've done everything I can, really worried about evicting me. But it picked up on something you said, backstage, and also again there, which is all of these situations. I mean, you said that, 2/3 of people didn't contract the use of a pest manager at all. With that, and that's quite interesting. The number of pests that are out there, and yet people's reluctance to use a pest manager. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, like, number one, before we get into the why they didn't want to use a pest manager, like, were they successful in what they did, or did it get worse? I mean, how did that work?
So the first thing is that sometimes people weren't that bothered by certain pests, and it's like it seemed to be there was a sort of threshold point before they would take action. So people, mice were a key one for this. People talked about like how, because most of my research was in London, that London housing like means mice, that mice are everywhere in London, and people kind of talked about mice as being quite inevitable, but they also often talked about the idea that there was like just one mouse in their apartment, and just one mouse is fine, and there we go. And so
it's not a house mouse, it's our house mouse.
Yeah, that one mouse,
Mr. Jingles.
Yes. That one mouse that comes back year after year, and I was like, okay. And the point when people started to no, and sometimes people were just fine with the mouse. Sometimes they were like, I saw this mouse, it happened occasionally, it seemed to be seasonal, I never saw it on the surfaces, I never saw my food being nibbled, I was like, just a mouse. And those people, some people quite enjoyed seeing mice. They were like, they're quite cute, they're running around, so sometimes they weren't that bothered. But then people, like, the sort of threshold got crossed when people started seeing like multiple of the, like, if they saw like a number of mice, or if often if mice kind of appeared in more like more intimate parts of the flat. Like if they appeared in bedrooms, people often then got upset. And I think that's interesting because it's, you know, we often talk about pests in terms of public health, but here what we're talking about is more a sort of a psychological relationship, right? Because the mouse in the kitchen that's potentially in the food is considered a problem, even though it's like the health risk of contamination is greater, right? But then the mouse that might be walking near you while you're in bed is seen as this bigger threat, even though like on a public health level, probably that mouse is less concerning. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Which of those two then, because bed bugs are in your bed, which pest would you say was more psychologically damaging to people?
Bed bugs, 100% bed bugs. And I think it's because it's that next level of intimacy again, right? It's that like they're like, you know, the mouse in the bedroom's bad. Sometimes there were mice on beds. That was also a source of threat, but the bed bugs are on the bed and they're on the body, right? And that people talked a lot about how even people who didn't have reactions to bed bugs, who didn't even respond to the bites, they talked about how what they found distressing was this sense of like the kind of invasiveness of knowing they're on your body when you sleep. Like that really bothered people. And sometimes people I spoke to would tell me these very long stories of like their experiences of moths or mice or rats or silverfish or whatever. And at the end they'd be like, I'm so glad I didn't have bed bugs. They would be the worst thing ever. And so bed bugs were often held up as like this pest that people feared the most, even if they hadn't directly experienced them. So
I had one customer said that the bed bugs were drinking the tears out of his eyes.
Oh my God.
It was like, oh my God. That's what I mean. Psychologically, drinking the tears out my eyes at night.
And
I think there's other issues there, Hugh, but also that's a terrifying sentence.
And yeah, so bed bugs were definitely, and I think the fact that bed bugs got called out so much, like that there was such a strong connection between bed bug cases and calling out professional pest controllers, I think that also speaks to like why they were seen as the worst. Also, Did they
wait to call out the pest controller for the bed bugs? Did they try to do it themselves, or it's just like, do it?
So it varies. So generally, what I would say generally happened was initially people would be in a state of like confusion or denial. They'd be like, oh, it's a spider bite. Oh, it's mosquitoes. And they would like initially, like, it's just this, if they haven't had bed bugs before, right? They'd still this be this point of uncertainty and denial. And then they would like, maybe they'd spot like sometimes but there was one story someone told me about how, or one interview he talked about how his partner was getting all these like welts or hives on her body, and so so she went to the doctor. She thought it was a rash, thought it was an allergy, and she was like, I must be allergic to something in my flat, and so she was staying at his flat more often, but actually his flat was the flat with the bed bugs, but he wasn't reacting to it, and so she was coming back and getting bitten again every night, and eventually they realized they were bed bugs. Often it's about spotting a bug. People go on the internet a lot to like, is this a bed bug, on Reddit to like get it, and once they've spotted it, then people often initially try and sort it themselves. So a lot of people bought like diatomaceous earth. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Lots of people bought that. Some people bought like protective mattress covers. Some people went really rogue and like sprayed a lot of chemicals on their bed and then slept in the bed in ways that was not great for their lungs. And so people often people do a lot of hot washing, a lot of freezing things. People like bought steamers. People like put all of their books in an oven to try and the book's caught fire.
Lavender oil.
Lavender
The book's
oil
caught fire.
I think they got slightly charred. Yeah, it wasn't a successful way of protecting the books. And so people like.
Let's put my first edition Longfellow in the oven, shall I?
So people take it very seriously when they realize a bed bug, they like spring into action, and then generally they also then they try that a bit, and generally they also then call a pest controller, and then they and then all the sort of like the freezing and the steaming and segregating the clean items from the dirty items and the storing everything in plastic tubs, that seems to carry on while they're doing treatments. And then if they get the bugs a second time, I found they tend to call pest controllers straight away. So that sort of denial, delay phase at the start doesn't happen. So I would say that a key thing that came through is that how people feel about the pest control industry is enormously shaped by their previous experience of pests and their previous experience of pest controllers, and that will affect what they do next, if that makes sense.
So that's a really good segue into what was going to be my next question, which is what was society's view of pest controllers? Because obviously I would rather bathe my bed in chemicals than call out a pest controller, which is an irony, because what are you worried about the pest controller doing? I don't want them to use chemicals around my home, so I'm going to just bleach my bed. Okay. So what is the general sort of like view of pest managers, and what can we do to make that better?
Okay, so there were a range of views came through. So some people, so some of the more negative views. I'm going to start with some of the more negative views. So some people, particularly when they'd called out pest controllers for rodent problems, they sometimes thought the pest controllers were like a waste of time. So they sort of said that the pest control would say things that were obvious, that they were commonsensical. They didn't need them to be told that. Or sometimes they were like unimpressed by how brief the visits were. And it's
that
funny,
across the board, any pest?
This is for rodents. This is for rodents particularly, right? So and it's funny because because I did my interviews with pest controllers last time, right? And I found it's like some of the quotes from the pest controllers mirror the quotes from the residents quite nicely. Like one of the residents I spoke to said I wasn't that impressed by the pest controller. He was only there 15 minutes. Like, what was he even doing, sort of thing. And then I know one of the pest controllers that I spoke to last year said you're not paying me 15 minutes of my time. You're paying for the years of experience. That means I can do this job in 15 minutes. And this idea of how that I would say that sort of recognition of skill and expertise wasn't always coming through in terms of how the residents saw what was happening. So with rodents, sometimes people were a bit dismissive. There was also sometimes people developed really strong opinions, particularly with bed bugs, around what sorts of treatments worked and didn't work. And these opinions were very different across my interviews. So people would tell me things like, the one treatment of spraying won't work, you have to have the 3 treatments. Or they'll say you have to have the heat treatment, the spraying doesn't work. Some people were very concerned about chemicals in their homes, and so were opting for heat treatments for bed bugs, even though they were more expensive. Or they would try and do a heat treatment. If it hadn't worked, then they would then agree to do sprays, chemical sprays. So some people were concerned that pest controllers were scamming them. That came up sometimes, and they would talk about going on Trustpilot to read their reviews, and sometimes they felt like they were being upsold services they didn't need. Sometimes they were worried that the pest controllers were treating bed bugs that weren't really there. Sometimes that would come up as well. So there was Was there any preference of company? Did they think a bigger company might rip them off more than a smaller company, or was it just across the board? So what they didn't express a strong preference about that. What I found was key, right? Was about if they had a positive experience with a particular individual pest controller, they would keep calling that one back, and they would recommend that one to friends. And it was about that individual and how that person treated them, and they seemed to care about that more than the size of the company they came from.
That's really interesting. So that element of that literal sort of like that human connection, that personal touch, that is worth as much, you know, in a successful treatment as anything else. And I mean, also what I'm taking from that is the ability to convey knowledge in a way that is both practical but also not patronizing. People want to know that you've got the skill, that you've got the knowledge to do the job properly, but they don't necessarily need you to tell that the rats which are in your bins are eating the food from your bins, and that's why you need to clean your bins. Okay, that's gold dust, I think, for a lot of people who should be listening to this. That balance of practicality over patronization. So can you give us any sort of like tips or hints from spoken to? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I can. So things like, so complaints I heard about pest controllers. So sometimes people, particularly when I was interviewing women, so the women I spoke to said they felt like they had been a bit
mansplained.
patronized. They've been a bit mansplained about the pest. Yeah, that was one thing that came up. Another one, sometimes people didn't like it when they talked about like how sometimes pest controllers tell them pest horror stories, but this makes them feel like the treatments are not going to work. So like one person talked about how like the pest control would tell her stories of how, like, you know, the rats are going to chew through the concrete, rats can chew through anything, and she'd therefore be like, well, why am I even paying this man to deal with these rats? The rats are indestructible. So like it would like make her feel like there was like not much hope in the treatment. Or another person, so one person who she had 3 instances of bed bugs over her life. So she felt a bit like she was cursed. And the second one, the first instance, she was on holiday, she did some hot washing of her clothes, it was fine. The second one, she really struggled to get them treated. She had a professional coming out, but the professionals, they kept making jokes about her situation, and she got really so she felt quite upset because she was like, she had to put all stuff in storage. She was spending all her life going to the laundrette. She was really stressed. It was very disruptive, and they kept joking because she was going to go to a wedding, and they were like, tell us what hotel you're staying in, we'll call the hotel because you're bringing them bed bugs. And she didn't like that. So so I feel like, know your audience before you tell those jokes. That's one thing that came up. But then she had a different pest controller years later, when she had bed bugs in a different house, right? And this pest controller, so she thought he was brilliant. So she rhapsodized about how great he was. She was in like a shared house. He was called Dennis, this pest controller, and they changed their house WhatsApp group to being called Dennis for President because they thought he was that great. So Dennis is what we can aspire to, right? So she talked about how like she was in this like really she was a mess when he arrived, right? She was emotionally a mess because they'd found bed bugs, and she was remembering this previous time when she had bed bugs, and she was, you know, very distressed. And he was like really calm, he was really reassuring. He was like, look, I'm gonna do this, we'll check this room, then we'll do this. And he like was very grounding, and she like felt really confident in his abilities. He got it sorted, and she was really happy. And like, you know, and like, you know, and she would recommend Dennis to others, you know. Or there was another person who she was the person who talked about scammers. Like she worried that she'd been scammed, and she phoned the bedbug ladies, and she talked about how helpful they were, and like she talked about them a lot, and she's told other people to go to the bedbug ladies. It's been like, again, like calming, reassuring, knowledgeable, like and now she says that that's it, she won't speak to anyone else. Those are the only people she'd ever go to if anyone had bed bugs. So like sometimes people do like, so that basically not everyone has negative attitudes with pest controllers, and some customers do really like really appreciate
what gave them the confidence. What made them like them? Was it the confidence that the pest controller had, or the way that they were kept in the loop, or anything specific, or just?
So I think it's so. I think a key thing is like it sounds like a key thing is recognizing that you're not just there to engage with the pest, you're also there to engage with like where the customer is at emotionally, which I know is also like that's asking quite a lot of you sometimes, but like recognizing that like kind of responding to them, like being willing to answer their questions, like being quite calm about it, like not telling horror stories, not sensationalizing, like giving a clear like idea of like what might happen, like we might need this many treatments, if so we'll do this, like kind of like laying out the information clearly. Those like letting people know, like that seemed to be what it was. It was about like being reassuring and knowledgeable, also being respectful of space, that came up as well. So like
how do you mean?
So one person, not no, but what I mean by that, right, was that one person I spoke to, it was the pandemic when she had bed bugs, and so she's not had anyone in her house for months, right? And it's that weird thing about how it's weird to go into other people's homes at that point, and so she felt, and so like having to have pest controllers come in and be in her bedroom felt a bit weird. But she felt like they were like really respectful of the fact that it was her home, it was her room. They like kind of acknowledged it, and so that made her feel more positively about it as well. Although I also did get told a funny story about respecting space, which was it? It must have been another bedbug one. It was a bedbug one. So it was a shared house of like people renting together, and one person was like the one of the residents was like the person liaising with the pest controller, and he had to message her and be like, I cannot treat all the rooms. There's a sensitive object on one of the beds, and there was a sex toy on the bed that had been left there by a resident, and he was like, we don't touch that. That's our policy. That's invasive. And she found that very funny because she was like, you can just move it. He was like, no. And so like, you know, I think he did the right thing and not touching it, but that was quite funny. She was like, well, I guess it was kind of sensitive, but yeah. So that was another way in which space is respected in bedrooms.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
It's a very needy dog here.
Got a need. What are you doing, Alex?
Oh, sorry, this puppy is undermining my authority here.
What was the biggest thing about the whole thing that actually surprised you, do you think?
I think that I think it was that like pests, that often it wasn't really about the pests themselves. That like often the like, and sometimes the anxieties and fears people had around them was actually, it was often more about the disruption and the instability having pests could cause. So like this came through a lot with the bed bugs, right? That even people who aren't reacting to the bites, the fact they're having to like hot wash all their clothes, put everything in freezers, put their books in ovens, all these things, right? That like the way, and that they couldn't have people over to their homes, it disrupts relations with partners, they're worried about spreading to others. It's like that disruption becomes much bigger than like what the individual insects are doing. Or another thing that I found interesting was it was like that sometimes it was like the pests started to like slightly symbolize other things that were happening in people's lives. So like one person I spoke to had like fungus gnats during all over their houseplants, like a lot of fungus gnats during the pandemic, and they didn't call in a pest control, they got really obsessed with trying to get rid of the fungus gnats, and they were like buying sticky traps and buying neem oil from the internet and doing over this and putting like aquarium sand in and like doing all these sprays, and it wasn't really about the fungus gnats, it was about like being in a pandemic, not being able to go outside, not being sure what's happening in their life more generally, like that sort of wider sense of like a loss of agency and control. And so they're trying to control this one small bit of their home, which is like the fact there are flies everywhere. And so sometimes it was like the pests kind of became a symbol for something else.
It's strange you say that, because when we had Dr. Gail Ridge on, and she did a lot about delusory parasitosis and delusory infestation, and she said during the pandemic that's where it really kicked off. So you know, that intensity, I'm stuck in a house with, you know, fungus flies and I gotta get rid of it, because and it wasn't actually the fungus flies, it was just the whole containment of everything.
And I also I spoke to some people where I'm not sure if I would call this delusional parasitosis or not, but there were like some situations where maybe the bed bugs weren't there. Like it was like a bit ambiguous that people would like so like if they'd like definitely had a bed bug situation before that had been like difficult to manage, then when they were in a situation of high stress, like say if they were moving house, they would then think they had bed bugs again. And like some of them like got professional treatments done just in case, because it was a bit ambiguous and it might have been bed bugs. And again, it's that thing about like in this context of stress, people are like fixating on the idea of pests maybe because there are other things going on that they, you know, they can't necessarily control.
So, yeah, I think so. We touched on something. It was, I think, Marcus Scruggs when we did the you know, his PPK podcast, came up with a very good line, which was, you know, your home is your castle, and when you get pests in it, it's very much an invasion of your sanctuary and your space. And so it's less about the pest and more about you and your position within what you see as your fortress.
So which out of all of those things, so in marketing terms, people talk about pain points, which is like the actual, what do they feel? Is it that the pests are damaging the building? Is it that they're causing psychological issues? Is it that they feel dirty? Do they feel, you know, they can't talk to? What out of all of those things was the major thing that people thought was wrong as such, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think the major thing to like link to that quote that Alex has read, I think the major thing was it made it feel like their home wasn't their home. It like disrupted their sense of being at home. I think that was it. It was like I think it was about and that as a sort of like psychological distress. And sometimes that would like come out like also in terms of like the like if you have to, for when people were doing treatments, like moving all their stuff out of their rooms, and sometimes like some of the people I spoke to, if they were in like quite like high density housing, they would struggle to have a space to store the items they were moving out of their rooms. So like if you've got this like a flat share of lots of people and there's bed bugs in one room, like people like there wouldn't necessarily be a living room they can even put their stuff in. So like people are like storing their like possessions in the garden in the hope that like the sun will get to the plastic bags and kill the bed bugs in them. And so like that sort of thing is like, you know, their home stops feeling like a home because of the disruption. So I think that was like a key thing.
So if you had to put one headline on a website that was a pest controller, you'd put, "Is your home being invaded?"
Home invaders.
Home invaders. Home
invaders.
Or is that too psychologically distressing?
Oh, I don't think I'd put home invaders. What would I think I'd frame it in the positive. I would be like, it's more about like feeling secure and comfortable at home. It's like what I would frame it in terms of what you want to feel when the pests are gone, not about we'll give you back your home. There we go, that's much nicer.
Or Raquel Borders.
No. No. not the podcast. So, I mean, the question there is now is another sort of like the dirty side of the industry, so to speak, which is
money.
Yeah,
Money, the dirty side.
The dirty side. So, what was you've already mentioned? Some people felt that they're being scammed. Obviously, because people don't understand the costs of pest control, or other people felt that they weren't getting the right value because the in-out job done, and they didn't see efficiency as value for money. They just saw it as somebody doing an easy job and wandering away. So, what headlines and what can you tell us about the public perception as to cost?
So, I think the problem is right. Let's say for a moment, like energy bills, right? Or like costs in the supermarket. Like people might have a sense of like what they expect to pay, right? And then they notice when it's above that amount, and that feels like it's not value for money, or it feels like an unmanageable increase. And sometimes our expectations of what we pay might be skewed to what they were like 15 years ago, whatever. But we have a sort of sense of what a baseline is, and then there's an amount which feels like it's too much, right? The issue I think that was coming up in the interviews is that the baseline is zero. The people don't anticipate at all paying for pest control, and so therefore it feels like any amount feels like an unexpected cost because they haven't anticipated the possibility of this cost. So there isn't a good baseline to work from, if that makes sense.
And that's upsetting, but also not unexpected. But why do you think people get this? You wouldn't expect an electrician to come out and rewire your house for free. You wouldn't expect a plumber to do it, or if you had remedial work on your house, the handyman wouldn't come in and paint your walls for free or anything else. So why is there this and it is persistent, you're not this persistent opinion that pest management is free? Should it be free?
I wonder if it's because if you're going to phone an electrician, it's going to be 100 quid straight away. You just know it. Anybody thinks it's going to be less, it's like, oh, it's going to be 100 quid, isn't it? So, and they perhaps don't see us in the same sort of light. Don't know.
I think it's that and a few things. So it's like whether or not you expect pest control to be part of maintenance. And again, just to clarify, like that everyone I'm talking to is like they're all residents in their homes, right? Rather than like a business where like they're not on a business property where you've got a contract. Like, so it's about maybe not foreseeing pest control as part of maintenance. It's about that question about whether or not it is an activity that requires professionals, because people might buy some traps, but they wouldn't like rewire their house themselves, like depending on their own skill and expertise, right? So like I think it's also about whether they think it's a professional job, and then it's also like not having that sense of what the ballpark figure might be. So I think it's a few of those. Like one person I spoke to, she was talking about like how much her bed bug treatments cost, and she needed to do it because she had bed bugs, and she's one of the people who's really happy with the pest control that she got. But she talked about how like she had some savings so she could afford it, but like it wasn't money for bed bugs. It wasn't envisioned as being used in this way.
Did they tend to shop around? Those people that actually used pest controllers? Was that a question you asked, or what made them shop around? What were they looking for in any way?
So I asked like, how did you find the pest controller? Did you go to the same one again? I asked those questions. Sometimes people couldn't really remember where they'd found their pest controller. Sometimes it was about the speed, like sometimes it was about like they wanted people who come like as soon as possible, and that was like, or like within a day or so. So often that was what they. Sometimes people would choose like what they thought were like a mid price, because they like felt like maybe like the cheapest ones might not do a good job. So I think, yeah, those. So I kind of. Yeah, people often were a little bit vague about how they found them, because often they had forgotten, and often they forgot the company names, because they'd be like, it was something kill mouse bug. I don't know, they often like couldn't quite remember the names.
That brings into my next question, which is why, you know, they couldn't remember who it was, but could people remember why they chose that person? Was the initial, were people's choices based on cost? Was it based on company ethos? Did they have a look at the website and be like, oh, I like these guys, they only use traps, or I like these guys, they use chemicals that remind me of dropping military ordnance, you know, on things.
Agent Orange.
What was it that legitimized a pest controller in people's eyes? What was the big draw?
So aside from the ones who go back to repeat, apart from repeat customers who'd like found the pest control they liked, in terms of initially hiring someone, what for bed bugs, like what types of, like what methods of control they offered was significant. So they're like, would they offer heat treatments or not? Like how many sprays, like that those questions came up a little bit. I think cost was significant, and I think availability was significant. No one mentioned company ethos to me. Like that didn't come through. And I often got the impression that people were hiring pest controllers in a somewhat panicked state, that they were like not necessarily calm, rational actors who are evaluating different options. They were like, I've got to find someone now. That's how they were. Yeah, exactly.
And I take it, sorry, Alex. I was going to say, I take it that the majority of people just found people on the internet.
Yes.
Okay. I find that really interesting, that we put so much time talking about, you know, the image, the reputation of pest management, and how we present ourselves, and how we come across, you know, your website. Should you focus on the more environmental aspect, or should you talk about this? And the reality of it is you're quite right. Most domestics, the first time that they're going to make that decision, it's in a panic. And so the reality of it is it's not, it's ease, and easy to find, easy to book, easy to have them come to you in a flexible way.
It was Pete, wasn't it? Pete Bowers said, how fast, how much? That was it. How fast, how much? Which is it's not always the best, is it? How fast can you get here? Well, in about 10 minutes. What are you doing? Sitting around waiting? Haven't you got any work to do? You know, it's like, okay. Somebody phones us up. We're like, yeah, we might fit you in next week. So, yeah, if somebody can fit somebody in straight away, they haven't got that much work, have they? And they didn't correlate that together then.
It's like that classic paradox, isn't it? You go into a barber's and there's 3 barbers there. 2 of the, you know, one of them has the most amazing, you know, haircut, and the other one has the scruffiest, crappiest, nastiest hair. Which one do you use to have a haircut? Which one do you choose to cut your hair? Obviously, you go for the well-presented man, don't you? But you should go for the other one, because he's the one that did the haircut of the well-presented man. Paradoxical thinking. Apart from Yuki, you probably don't do that very often.
I think they weren't. No one I spoke to was like imagining instant service. They weren't imagining like, come to my door now, let's sort this out. But like, I think it was that. But I think like people would say things like, they came the next day, which I thought was very fast. And they were like that was like the level of speediness, like within a few days was generally what people I think were expecting, rather than necessarily same day call outs. Like no one mentioned that in particular.
Was there a bias towards how the communications were preferred? You know, did people prefer it sending in a text message or an email, booking over the phone? Because we're seeing a trend, more and more younger people are more and more
don't want to speak to anybody.
Don't want to talk to anyone. They don't want to use the phone. They don't want to phone up. They'd much rather do everything. If you can go onto a website, put the booking in on the website. Was there an element of that? Because I imagine with pests, you don't want to talk to someone. You don't want to have to sort of like speak those words and make them a reality if you can put a form into the internet and have someone turn up.
I don't know. We didn't cover that, so I actually don't know. What I would say is that, like, even if people might not want to communicate that much on the phone to arrange the appointment, like when the pest manager turns up, people often seem to have a lot of questions that they wanted to like run through with the pest controller, and so like being very available for those questions seemed important. And that, I think that's where that like reassuringness comes from, is about like the conversations that happen face to face during the first visit.
Was anybody surprised of the knowledge, either the amount of knowledge or the lack of knowledge that the pest controller had? Or was it just expected?
No one mentioned a lack of knowledge. One person talked about how surprised they were that the pest controller was having such a good time. I'm going to find you a quote because it was quite a funny one. Yeah, where are my fun quotes?
Class.
Yeah. One person said, I remember letting him in and I'd be like, hey, how are you? He'd be like, I am great. I'm having the best day ever. I've got the dream job. I'm going to go and kill some pests. And she talked about how...
We all know that pest controller, though. We've all met
so she liked how friendly he was and was glad he was having such a good time in his life. So that surprised her in a nice way. I guess another thing to say is that that a lot of my interviewees became like unwilling experts in their own ways, because they like, particularly the bed bugs, they became quite obsessed with researching them, and obviously some of the sources they're using may not be the most accurate, but they would like spend a lot of time learning about them, and they would tell you what they'd learned about the reproductive cycles, and they'd like and they would find it helpful when the pest control's explanations like connected with their knowledge. So like explaining like, we're doing this many treatments because of when eggs will hatch, and we'll get the adults this time, we'll get the young this time. Like that sort of level of knowledge people found like also like helpful and reassuring.
So validation of their own research was reassuring, because it gave them confidence that the pest manager knew what they were talking about, rather than, okay, so where are people finding this research? Where can we go and validate?
Not pest interceptors.
No, okay. Was it you mentioned Reddit before? Reddit or Google, or did they go to actual, like, proper websites for it?
I would like push on this, and people be like, I went on the internet, and I'd be like, okay. But that's often all I'd get. So like, I think so some people did go on Reddit, and I also in fact I have another fun quote. I'm gonna give you another fun quote from this is from a person who'd had quite a lot of pests, but they'd never actually had, they thought they'd seen a bed bug, right? And they described how, well, I went on Reddit, and Reddit is like, if you have bed bugs, leave your house, set fire to your clothes, drive a car to a random garage, burn your car, and move to another country, and change your name. That's the only way to get rid of bed bugs. And I was like, that is the vibe of Reddit sometimes. And so also people are also reading stuff which like is really like riling them up in certain ways. Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, maybe we need to start, guys, our own Reddit subgroup, Beauties and Beasties on Reddit, just to see what's going on, to dispel some myths. Right, we're coming into the final furlong now. I would like to ask 2 questions, and I'm sure Hugh's got some as well. But my 2 questions in 2 parts. Question number 1: what is the number, from speaking to all of these people, what is the number 1 thing you recommend that all pest controllers stop doing tomorrow? What's the one thing that's putting the general public off using pest controllers more than anything else?
Oh, that's such a key question. I think so. I think it's that. I guess it's that. So I would say it's that pest control doesn't always have a great reputation, and that pest controllers are having to counteract those negative attitudes, right, or those negative images. And I think that moment of encountering customers, being reassuring, being like being willing and able to engage with like where they're at emotionally is, I think, what's really key to challenging that, right? And that's different to say when we talked about like when you talked about like, what if you call an electrician? Like, you kind of don't expect the electrician to like have to do the emotional work of dealing with the fact that you're distressed that there's an issue with your power. Like, they're just there to like deal with the power. Whereas here, actually the pest control is having to do with both things. They're having to provide knowledge, they have to reassure, they're having to figure out what's going on, and they're having to sort out the pest. So it's actually like, I think it's having to do all those things, and people knowing that the person they're hiring can do all those things.
There's been many, well, I say many, but quite a few times when people have been crying.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you're not quite sure whether, you know, to put your arms around them or no and say, come on, it's all right, we'll deal with it, don't worry about it. But there have been times when you do feel like, yeah, no, it's okay, don't worry about it, you know, it's fine, we can sort it. So yeah, definitely need a bit of that sounds a bit snobby, doesn't it? Emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound snobby at all. I think that's a really sort of like fundamental part of what we do. Is you're seeing people at their most emotionally vulnerable because everything that is, you know, their foundation's been taken away from them. You have to come in. You can't come in with your big stomping boots and.
It's all right, Mrs. We'll kill it.
Let me go get the flamethrower from the back of the truck. This will only be a minute. So yeah, I think that's a really good thing. People being more cognizant of their what they are putting out there and how that's going to be picked up by people who are ostensibly not in a good way. Even if they look composed, they're not, because they've had to sort of like call you out. Otherwise, you know, they wouldn't be having a problem if you weren't there.
Probably the classic way not to deal with it. Do you remember the film Arachnophobia?
Mm-hmm.
What was the exterminator in arachnophobia called?
I can't tell you, but I can tell you that they used Demon, which was a 40% wettable powder.
And the homeowner was going, oh, what should we do with these dry wood termites? And he's just tapping the wood, go, dead wood, cut out dead wood, put in new. And he was it Delbert? I can't remember. But yeah, that's definitely not how to deal with customers.
Maybe that's what we should do. We should run a course on I don't know, didn't Rentokil used to do a course on customer, you know, dealing with customers?
Service sales course.
So that's it. That's
quite a good thing. Yeah.
When we're talking about emotions and connecting with people, Neil, that's an incredibly like analytical statement. So Neil's just put, you have to be able to extract the information you need from the customer and decide what's relevant and what's not. Absolutely true. Also, nothing to do with their emotional state, Neil.
just have to listen to them, don't you? That's the thing.
No,
you know?
but that is true. That I mean, I think both of those things are true, right?
yeah.
Because yeah.
For sure.
Because you do have to listen, don't you? You know, you can go in and just go, right, I'll do this. I'll get on with it. You know, you run along in the front room, customer, you know, and we'll sort it. Whereas if you get them talking, you can build a lot bigger picture and a lot better picture of actually what's going on. You might get the last 60 years worth of information, but that's worth that extra 5 minutes, isn't it?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, right. This has come up a lot in my interviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about where people are getting bed bugs. And this is a question from many of my interviewees. Is it possible they're getting bed bugs from the London Underground? How likely is that?
Public transport in London has been... Sorry. Hugh, go.
Oh, you go. You do. You started.
Public transport in London has been clearly cited repeatedly as having an issue with a variety of pests, bed bugs included. They live in the soft furnishings of them. People pick them up. That's what I've picked up from speaking to people working in London. Hugh, what do you about to say? Wow.
What I was actually going to say was I didn't actually think that it was going to be possible for quite a while to pick them up from sitting in areas, just sitting somewhere where other people had sat. And that's not true at all, because we've had quite a few that have been transferring in a certain pub where lots of people go to meet, and a certain set of people sit in one area, and they've been transferring them between themselves. And after a couple of issues this week where we found bed bugs in suit jacket pockets that haven't been noted, and in people's shoes, I would say that it's highly possible that they can start dropping off of people's clothes. But I don't go to London, so I don't know. But Pete does, and he says it is possible, but it's highly unlikely.
Okay.
It's absolutely possible that they are on the tube and the underground, because they absolutely are there. The question is, though, is how likely is it that you are going to pick enough
long enough
body that to take home to then seed an infestation? So that is the question.
If you were going to sit on the tube for long enough, that's the thing, isn't it? If you're just sitting there for 2 stops, chances are I would think that you're not going to be able to. But if you're going on a night sleeper train, well, that's not the underground, but that's a little bit more likely, where you're in one position for a long time. Say again?
Would it also make a difference about what time of day bed bugs are active? And if they're underground, does that affect when they're active? I mean, there are questions around that maybe as well.
So, yeah. But the things with all animals, with the exception of a few like moles, will operate under a circadian rhythm, right? But it's been clearly shown that when these animals go into artificial environments, that can rapidly break down. So, for example, rats that live outside in burrows, in nature, in the banks and the woods, they will go through a breeding phase, which is quite, what's the word? It's like clockwork. They'll have babies, there'll be a cool-off period, they'll get pregnant, they'll have babies as a cool-off period. You get so many litters a year. But rats that live in the sewer, where there is no stimuli, or there's very little stimuli from the moon and the sun and the rest of it, they tend to breed almost continuously, but at a much more protracted rate. So they don't operate under a normal circadian rhythm anymore. Things like cockroaches will operate differently if there is a light left on all the time, because obviously they're going to wait for it to get dark. But if you are in a commercial environment where the lights are left on all the time, then ultimately you move to that. So I'd say, yeah, under normal conditions, a bed bug in your house will be operating when it is dark, when it's quiet, when all of these factors come into play. But if those factors never come into play, then that animal has to adjust its behavior in order to adapt to that environment. So
plus the the bed bugs would prefer to be tucked in somewhere because they've got this thing called thigmotaxis where they like to be stuffed in between something. But so whereas if you've got it on your clothes and you suddenly drop it off on this nice smooth leather, seat, it's going to go, I want to go somewhere. So it's going to go towards I would think, the place where it can tuck itself away, which is in your suit pocket.
When was the last time you were on the underground, Hugh, for any of the seats to be made of leather?
I thought maybe you were referring to the pub.
No, it's quite a
He
long
was
time.
definitely referring to the public transport and the old leather seats you used to get on the old buses and the old trains.
Last time, yeah, it was quite a while since I've been to London, I must admit. I think I went to see the Imperial War Museum at school.
When it was being founded.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
As Pete said something. Pubs, hotels, workplaces, work vehicles, train, coach, bus, truck, biggest transport related taken home transfers, I would say, are local authority bulk waste teams. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was an interesting one during lockdown, with so many people sort of like, I'm finally going to take DHS up on their forever closing down sale that's been going on for the last 20 years. I'm going to get a new sofa. We're going to spend all this time inside. We're going to get a new sofa. But of course, none of the waste tips were open. You couldn't get to them. So people decide, I'm going to leave this sofa on the side of the road with a sticky note on it saying free to a good home. And of course, then there was no checks and no vets and the rest of it. People just wandered past and picked up this sofa and just Trojan horsed a load of bed bugs into their house during lockdown, which was quite amazing. I think
we've only got a few minutes left, so have we got any other golden nuggets?
I don't think so. I think those were all my nuggets.
That's great. It's fine. No, that's absolutely. I just didn't want to miss anything because they were all so interesting. If you'd had, I didn't want to end it before. Go on, Alex.
No. So the bit of research we spoke about last year, of course, came out. It's just been published in the last couple of weeks, and you're going to write up like an abridged version of it for consumer use. The bit of research you're doing now, when do you expect that to get published?
So academic publishing takes a long time. So it might be in another year's time again that this is actually out. Yeah, it's very slow. I know. It's peer review. It's a slow but careful process.
Last question, therefore, then. So you've done this one, you've done the one previously. What is the next project?
I think I want to start looking more at Asian hornets and how they're being managed in different places. Hugh's going to dig a hole and climb into it. Sean is going to absolutely love that, and I think there's a lot of our listeners will as well. I love the fact that the next project is somewhere on the horizon. So with the last couple of minutes left, tell us, what can we do as pest managers? I know you may not have sort of like a fully fleshed out and formed thesis for this yet, but how can we help? Because you've done, from what this hour and a half alone, you've done a huge amount for us and this industry. So how can we help you progress this research? The Asian hornet research,
or any
research.
Even if you can't think of it now, you're always welcome to ask.
So I really had a good experience going out with people, seeing how they work in everyday life. I would like to do a bit more of that because I think I'd also like to write a book at some point. And so it would be good to get a few more like first-hand experiences of the pest control industry. So I think it's the same request I did last time. It was up for me coming along with them, seeing what their work is like. I can like hopefully carry some things. That would be great.
This is going to be your Jane Goodall moment, isn't it? Life with the pest controllers.
And where are you based, Hannah?
So I'm largely based in London, but I work at the University of Southampton.
Okay, so you would like to go out in around Southampton and London?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, well, I can see
Me.
quite a few people already that may be able to do that for you.
Great.
So
Great.
I shan't put them on the spot, but I'm sure.
I'm sure you guys know who you are.
Yeah, you know who you are, you
You
Londoners.
You know.
You Londoners, you lot.
If you haven't been out with Mark Porter, he's probably a good one to go out with as
Oh
well.
yeah,
Great.
yeah,
That would be fun.
yeah, that would be good. Right,
Big
we're at the
green.
end, aren't we, mate?
It is. Sorry, let me. The last
where's our-
3 questions then.
There, we got them.
I got them then.
You've
So
done
I'll
these
ask-
before, so
Yes. See if your answers have changed from last time. So, have you enjoyed your time on the podcast?
Yes, it's been great fun.
So good, I did it twice.
next one is, as always, give us a shameless plug if you've got one.
Oh, my article. Everyone read it when it's out. I'll send it round.
We'll put it on their Facebook page for everybody. As soon as we got it, we'll put it on the
Great.
Facebook page.
Great.
So yeah,
Sorry, Pete's just said there, always welcome out with him and the Big Smoke. Same with Porter, and also Vicky Sims, who's been talking on here as well. Ladybug. All 3 of
Excellent.
those are lovely people, so you'd have a
Amazing.
good time there. And the last question is who would you like to hear from on the podcast? Who would you like us to interview next?
Oh, this is me, I guess, digging in for my future research. Maybe more people who have worked on Asian hornets.
We did.
we've had a few.
You've had maybe you've covered it.
We covered.
We had a whole mini series on Asian hornets.
Okay, well, I need to go back and listen to your back catalogue. That's what I've got to do.
Yeah, so you want to listen to Robert Moon, John DeCarteret. I can't remember the others that we did, but we've done quite a few on Asian hornets.
Brilliant.
That's why my reaction was like, no, because they come up every other week.
We also interviewed Syrian Sumner, who wrote a book on wasps called Endless Forms, which is a fantastic book. And also, if you want to listen to it on Audible, she narrated it herself, which is just delightful.
It's a good book. Excellent book. Really good book. Yeah, I really enjoyed that book.
I've got another one. I'm interested in what's happening with screwworms in the US.
Okay.
That'd be Andy.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear more about.
Yeah, that's a very different kind of pest management, because that falls a lot more into the veterinary there.
Yeah.
And on that,
He's bound to have a contact, though, isn't he?
Oh, he absolutely is. Can you recommend from us, because maybe we'd like to go, again, down this academic Warren rabbit hole. Is there anyone else in academia that is pest management adjacent, even if it's, on the other end, that would make for a good interview?
Yes.
I did try to get somebody on, Dr. Poppy Wild.
Oh, I don't know Poppy Wild.
She did the Uberification of pest control.
Oh, interesting. I think off air, the names are not coming to me in this moment, but off air, I could definitely see some suggestions of people who'd be interesting to have on the show. Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, hold on after the podcast.
Don't go. Stay afterwards a minute.
I will stay.
But for everyone else, thank you ever so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being on tonight. Absolute pleasure. Who have we got next week, Hugh?
We have Leah Darby from Complete Bedbug Solutions.
Awesome. Right. So that's going to be good
There we
fun.
go.
Lovely. You going to do the buttons out?
I'll do the button out.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.